And at the end of the 6 weeks, the coaches got in touch with our head teacher at the primary school and said, we'd like the phone number of Christiansen. My brother was involved and I was involved, and so the phone was ringing one night and my parents answered the phone, and basically we could hear the conversation, and it was around one of us going in for a trial at Manchester United. And I only found this out recently, but my brother thought it was for him. Which, you know,
hold that, bro.
There's a bit of friction. There's a bit of friction between us.
The official Manchester City podcast. Watch the full video version of this show via City Plus now.
Izzy, thanks so much for joining us on the podcast. It's one I've been really looking forward to. I'm sure Nedum's the same. We start off normally by talking about your career in the game and so on, and then moving on to stuff away from the pitch. So we'll follow the same trend. You obviously started out firstly at Everton, but then before then as well, what was your sort of grassroots journey like into football? Yeah,
grassroots. There wasn't much grass on the pitch that I played on. I was speaking about where I'm from, Macclesfield, a small village outside called Rayno. Some Mancunians may have heard of it if they escaped to the country to get out of the busy city now and again. But I went to a primary school called Rayno Primary School, and it was a very, very small school. And there was we called it the green pitch, but there wasn't much green on it. It was more mud. Brown pitch, it probably should have been called. But that's where I played every night until it got dark. There was a group of me and some of the boys I went to school with and my brother, who's a couple of years older than me. We just used to play until we got shouted in from a small village, so our parents could come and pick us up late at night when it was getting dark, to drag us off the pitch and take us in for tea and do our homework. So it's been deeply ingrained in me from a very young age just to be obsessed with the game, and that's how I started. And you're probably not going to like this, but I was picked up by Manchester United at the age of 8, and it was actually funny because their community education programme came out as far as Rayno, which was a good, from their old training ground, the Cliff, it was a good hour's drive. They came out as far as us in Rayno, and they started delivering like a 6-week PE sort of football programme, which was good fun. And at the end of the 6 weeks, the coaches got in touch with our head teacher at the primary school and said, we'd like the phone number of Christiansen. My brother was involved and I was involved, and so the phone was ringing one night and my parents answered the phone, and basically we could hear the conversation, and it was around one of us going in for a trial at Manchester United. And I only found this out recently, but my brother thought it was for him. Which, you know,
hold that, bro.
There's a bit of friction. There's a bit of friction between us. But no, he's such a good footballer. He plays five-a-side now. I need to get him in with us, Nedum, at one point.
Absolutely.
He's a baller. So, but that's how my career started. Got into the team, and then I moved to Everton when I was 14.
Yeah.
And then my career progressed, but went to university because we could never sort of believe that there was a dream of being a pro. It never really crossed my mind, and it never was a thing. So I was very much for getting an education. I wanted to be a teacher. So yeah, my career kind of took a huge step upwards when I signed for Manchester City in 2014, January 2014, when I signed my pro contract here, and that's when my career kind of really kick-started.
Yeah, she said a lot there.
Sorry,
she's covered, what is it, 20 years?
Fine, there's nothing wrong with that. We can dissect and move back.
Do you know what's interesting? You mentioned playing for United at that academy level.
Yeah.
And which year was this, looking back?
Wow. So we are working backwards in 2024. I'm 33 years old now. So I was 8. Can we do the maths?
It's probably easy if you said the year you were born.
91.
Okay.
Yeah, there we go. Excellent thinking. 98.
Okay.
And I do remember, it was the year that United won the treble. 99.
No, it was the year City won at Wembley.
That's exactly it.
That's the year.
I just remember that's how football kind of became my passion. So
the reason I was asking that is because, say, my daughter plays football now,
yeah,
and she's 7. And when you hear about some of the good female players or young girls that play around the city, there is talk about, say, this United Academy or youth setup.
Yeah.
And I think they've been at the forefront of it for longer. And as a consequence, the City almost feel like they're trying to aspire to be as significant within the region as, say, United are. And I think little by little they are getting there. But it is interesting to hear that side of things, because a lot of girls would start off at United. A lot of girls, even to this day, are end up going through that way, and they don't necessarily, aspire to play for United or whatever. But it's interesting that you were part of that path that's still kind of prevalent now. But I'm sure with the women's team at some point, I think they'll have a bigger impact in terms of that local grassroots level of girls football.
Yeah, I think we're starting to see that now, because you obviously do work at the club as well, don't you, in the academy setup, and it seems like things are going from strength to strength over there at the moment.
Yeah, it's honestly, since I stopped playing, being part of this club again is just made my life. And I think that the impact that we can have coaching the next generation of Manchester City footballers is just, it inspires me so much. Like the girls I work with the under-16 girls academy group. I'm an assistant coach. I work 3 days a week here at the City Football Academy, and just the programme and the operation that is run by the academy, by the club, is just, I'm honestly blown away. Every day I'm blown away by how professional it is, and I think what inspires me even more is where they want to be and the aspirations for the future to become. I had a really great meeting with Charlotte O'Neill a couple of weeks ago, and it inspired me to a point where I was like, I don't want to work for any other club, like, as in with how exciting that their plans are, is to become the best female sporting organisation in the world, and that includes an academy. Yeah, because you got to feed the first team, you got to feed the results, and to me, I'm like, it's so impressive with what they're doing with women's football, and what they've also done is they've been sustainable with it, and I think that's even more admirable, as much as the aspirations are as well.
I think we're seeing that at the moment. I know obviously at the moment there are some injuries in the squad, which is giving the younger players opportunities, but Lily Murphy, Cody Thomas, Gracie Pryor, Evo Carroll, we had Maisie Davis on the bench as well against Everton recently. But looking back at these players, the majority of them have all been at City for 4, 5, 6 years now already, and they're growing. And I suppose the amazing thing about working in the academy is that these girls that you're probably coaching now, 2, 3 years' time, maybe even less, these are the players that are going to be in their footsteps, and they've got an example now that's very recent that they can kind of aspire to as well.
Yeah, it's an ecosystem, and like Nedum, you came through the boys' academy. You know, it's almost like mirroring what Nedum went through and the journey that you had in this football club to then go and play for the first team. It's like there's nothing better than bringing players through, and you know, people want investment, people want increased commercialisation of women's football at the highest level, but for me that can't be a distraction from the football. No. And I believe this operation here is going to be one of the best in the world, if not the best. And I think to be a part of that now, I mean, my aspirations are beyond the academy as a coach, I'll be really honest, but I know that earning the stripes and also building strong foundations with the young players, like, I believe some of the players in the academy now will be in the first team in less than 2 years' time.
Wow. And why is that? Why do you believe that?
Because they're so good.
So good at what?
Football.
No, but how though?
Because they have this. They play for England youth teams as well, so they are playing at the highest level they can at the moment. But it's a mentality, a shift in mentality. I'm seeing it, and I think the modern day footballer now, they're not arrogant. They ooze self-confidence, which is something I can relate to. I didn't have any self-confidence, and I still don't really. I find my confidence from gaining knowledge and education. Like, I read to get confident, if that makes sense. Where some people and some players are confident because they just believe in themselves that much. And I see a couple of players in the academy who they believe so much that no matter how much they're getting hit in training, we have this unbelievable program where it's called City Select, where we have 4 boys players that come over from City Select team who are playing with the team, who are observed by City level coaches. They come and train with the girls under 16s on a Monday night. We have the luxury of picking which positions of players we can choose from in order to challenge our high potential players.
Right.
So, for example, we have a player in the academy. She plays in sort of a number 10 role, an 11, a 9. She's got that sort of flexibility of a sort of Phil Foden. She can play anywhere in that offensive area. And we're like, well, what do we want then? We want a fullback on to play against her in this training session to get the most out of it, to maximise her potential. Because one thing to remember is these girls are still at school, and they're going through a lot of change in their bodies, and you know, there's a lot going on at that age as a teenager, as well as trying to become a senior international, as well as trying to become a Manchester City women's first team player. There's a lot going on for them, so it's all about managing them, but one thing they're not short of is self-confidence.
What an education that is for a young player, particularly. I suppose as well, what you're saying there as well about the self-confidence, that's something that, or is it something that you develop off the pitch, or is that just a personality trait that some people are lucky enough to have and others maybe don't? Or is it something that maybe the club is consciously trying to sort of instill in players at a young age, like you say, not arrogance or something that's going to hinder the development, but something that enhances it?
Well, you'll know this, Nedum, we call it citizenship behaviours. So they are things like being eager, being a good teammate, being confident, being helpful, being mindful of others. And that framework develops through the age groups in the academy. So from like an under-10s perspective, we're not looking at intricate characteristics. Then we're just looking to develop motor skills, basically. Whereas you start getting up to under 16, under 21 EDS level towards the first team, those citizenship behaviours could almost separate a player who isn't going to get into the first team. So you'll know this, Nedum, from coming through the academy. You know, Man City had this, transfer policy, signing good players but good people. And that framework then gives you something to then go off, as in, like, you know what you're looking for when you're recruiting, but you also know what you're looking for when you are developing your own players. And that's really important. And then that gives you pillars for the future. There's no point in having a team of superstars, but the culture's rubbish.
Yeah.
Because culture's everything in football nowadays. I think it's something which is a little bit disregarded. And I think having good people and having citizenship behaviours that you can hold players accountable to, it then develops them as people for the future. Like, look at yourself, Nedum. I mean,
I'm all right.
yeah, you're an all right guy.
I'm
like,
all right,
I think beyond all right, we're being really honest here. You're a top guy, and you've come through City Academy. I'm sure you've been brilliantly brought up by your family, which is the person you are today, but also the person you were from City Academy. I'm sure you learned behaviours in this academy that set you up for life.
Of course, yeah, you had to. And I think going back to those academy times as well, there were players who were really, really good, but they were also, like, as you said, there's self-confidence, then there's arrogance. I think some of the ones that carry a sense of arrogance, it's like almost a sense of entitlement as well. Right. Like if you're under 15, they'll be like, I should be playing under 16s. I should be playing under 17s. I should be playing under whatevers. But they're not understanding why they're not in that position. Whereas I think for other people, especially with the citizens type of thing as well, being inquisitive and wanting to get better, it's like one of the pillars of, say, your general behaviour, because you can always get better. You can always get better individually, collectively. And are you listening? Are you making the most of the environment that you're in? And I think some of the players these days, they definitely do that. And I prefer the players who maybe do have a bit more sort of like self-doubt as such, because they're always driving to be better because they feel like they've never done enough.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, a coach can say you've 1,000 shots after training is enough. Yeah, that's probably enough. But it's still the intent that they want to get better at shooting, want to get better at this other thing, instead of saying, well, this is me, I've completed it. Why am I not being treated as if I'm the best? Because clearly I'm the best. Those people, very rarely are they actually the best.
Yeah.
You get found out, don't you, eventually?
Eventually.
Yeah.
Listen, some of those journeys take a while to get found out, but in the end they do get found out. Yeah.
Well, I'm still going on this podcast.
Behave yourself. Don't be like that.
Yeah. Speaking about the environment and stuff, and this is a question to both of you, how much do you think the new facility is going to improve things as well? Obviously, we've got another year or so, but how much of an impact do you think that's going to have, not just on the first team players, but the young players coming through for our women's team?
Mega. It's when I heard about the plans for that, I was like, wow, that's incredible. I don't think we can go any deeper than saying it's just brilliant for the future, and also to match the ambition of wanting to become the best female sporting organisation in the world, which this club can be. Having that separate facility, I think there's so many positives being connected with the boys' academy here on this side of the building at the CFA, and I really like the way that they've got the separation between the men's first team and the boys' academy, because there's that sort of, if you think of it as like where you want to be over the other side of the building one day. But I think having the women's team, it was a big part of the way that we formed in 2013 when we rebranded from Manchester City Ladies to Manchester City Women. It was massive because we were then in and around academy players. Like we were in and around the academy gym when Phil Foden was developing. And trust me, he was skinny back then. And now he's this man. He's this athlete. He's filled out. But it's being that close to him it inspired us, and it gave us a flavour of what it's like to be professional footballers and to get that buy-in, which is something which I don't think we can ever take away from it. And the biggest measure, look at like Steph Horton, Karen Bardsley, Jill Scott. Like, we came through that together, and look at us all now. We've all stopped playing and we're all doing pretty okay for ourselves. And,
not too bad.
And do you know what I mean? It's like, again, it's like Nedum. It's City produces these people that are good footballers, but also longevity in life to make us equipped for the future as well. So going back to the building question, yeah, it's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, for sure. Because, you know, we assume that every club has got the best facilities and they're all trying to be the best that they can be. But most of the time, like, either money or desire ends up being like a big hurdle in relation to that. But when you aspire to be the very best, like to go back to when I was at City, after the takeover happened, we were training at Carrington, and Carrington was a good training ground. In one international break, they kind of changed it all, and it went from being a good one to a very good one. But even after that was happening, they said, we want to find a place that is going to be one of the best in the industry. And when I say the industry, I don't mean football, I mean sports. They went around to all the different sports complexes around the world, which were sort of setting the standard for what it is to be sort of searching for optimal performance. And now you find this training ground here at City, you know, and you look back to how incredible it was when it first happened, and still how good it is today as they're starting to adapt to the needs of like football and other things in relation to that, whether it's the case of the emotional side of you want to get to the other building, where it's the functional side of, well, these are the fields that you play on and these are some of the best pitches you can find. I think to have your own space, to be able to be trying to be the best that you can be, I think any club that is trying to do their best to find that 1% extra, before you know it, like as a player, you can find that 1% as well. Yeah. And don't get me wrong, like all the players who are really good players will find a way in any condition, but they'll find their like absolute best selves because they've got the opportunity and the sort of facilities to match that. And I think City doing that is incredible.
Yeah. It's all good having, this is like not City, this is just like any other football club. It's all well and good having the best facilities and looking and seeking that. But again, what you do within the building is completely subjective to what you want to do, and how your culture and how your operation is run will ultimately define how successful you'll be. Like, it goes hand in hand. Like, I think women's football's in a really interesting place with, you know, there's a lot of people out there preaching for better facilities, you know, better environments, more investment and all of this, and I get it, and that needs to continue. And Manchester City are really lucky here that we have that investment. But one thing I can tell you from this football club is that no one takes it for granted. And as soon as you think you've made it, it's probably the day you need to give up. And I think building that building for the women's team to then go and have its own operation inside this CFA structure, it'll probably humble the club and humble the women's team, because not that they're not humble at the moment, but it'll almost be like we need to really reset and remember what we've got, and we make this building the heart of like where we want to go moving forwards. Because let's be honest, Chelsea are dominating the Women's Super League at the moment. At present, they've got 5 back-to-back titles, which is ridiculous. Like, City, our operation is to take that over. And it's not just going to happen overnight. But what City have always got is the ability to compete, the ability to be close. And I think building that, and when it's done, it will really, really enhance the output of the operation, and I'm very excited to see what impact it'll have.
Definitely. I was going to actually ask you the decision to join City in sort of late 2013, early 2014.
Yeah.
On the face of it, it might have seemed like almost a bit of a risk, because I was looking through that Birmingham team that you were in. I mean, you got Marie Hurricane, Rachel Unit, Laura Bassett, Karen Carney. Like, it's a seriously good team. But the way you've been speaking about City and the growth and the mentality, it maybe seems like it was not an easy decision, but less of a difficult decision to kind of make that move.
No, it was a very difficult decision, and it was a risk. It was a risk. Like you say, I was in a really good team at Birmingham. I was at university in Birmingham, so that's where I got my degree, and I was coming into my final year, so year 3 of my degree, and I'd had a really successful time with the Blues. We'd won the FA Cup, we were knocking on the door of league titles, we were playing in the Champions League. So yeah, that was a fantastic experience in my career, playing with some awesome people as well. So when the City opportunity came around, it was a risk. And anyone who's done a degree will know the final year is obviously the most stressful. Year 1 is 40%, go out, pass, like whatever. And then year 2, you start to, you know, realise, oh, this is actually quite hard. Year 3, you play catch up, and you're also writing your dissertation. And so I was still living in Birmingham in a student house and coming up to Manchester to train. And Obviously, we weren't training every day at this point because it wasn't quite professional. But I spent a lot of my time on the motorway, and I had to pull over a lot to like miss sections of traffic, so that I'd like, basically, long story short, I ended up writing a lot of my dissertation in Knutsford Services because, and I've got like PTSD every time I drive past it now. And trust me, I'm going there pretty much every day. And yeah, so it was a tough time. And it was an emotional time. And I think the biggest emotional thing was the stress I was under with the travel, the stress I was under to try and hit the targets that City were setting, mainly physically, because we had a sports scientist, Elle Turner, who, if you speak to myself, Steph, Jill, KB, Tony Douglas, whoever played for this club from the very start when they rebranded, Elle Turner was like love-hate. She put us through the ringer. And I'm talking into dark places physically to get us up to a level. She used to get us on the line and not tell us what we were doing, basically. And that means get on the byline, you're going to run, and I'm not going to tell you when you're going to stop, basically. But this is all tough love, because it almost got us equipped to deal with the demands of what we were going to go into. And I remember coming up, I'd been stuck in traffic, I'd stopped at the services, we were training in Gorton at a college up the road. And we then didn't have any heads up. We were doing the bleep test or the yo-yo test that day. And I was so tired, emotional. I remember crying when I was running it because Elle wouldn't let me stop. And it was like this kind of like culmination of emotion. And I just couldn't deal with it. And I was like, how do I quit? I wanted to quit. And then I kind of got myself together a little bit. And then we got into the League Cup final that year, 2014, which against Arsenal, we played at Wickham. We had a team on paper where against the Arsenal 11, you know, the betters would say Arsenal are going to win that one. And we won 1-0. Yeah. And
Wonder who got the winner.
I scored the winner. And the celebration that I did after I scored, I felt was like the biggest weight of the world was off my shoulders. And the way I ran, I didn't know what to do with myself. I won a header in the box, headed it into the back of the net past Emma Byrne. I think Casey Stoney might have been one of the centre-backs, which is crazy. I won a header against her. Headed it into the back of the net on like the 72nd minute or something like that. So we had a little bit of time to hold on, and that was nervy. But the knee slide I did and the outpour of emotion was almost like everything just became real for me, and everything kind of felt okay again. And I felt like that was my moment in my career where I was like, I'm here for good. And I think that was just the biggest relief. And the fact that we won a trophy, you talk about new managers coming in and instant success gets the buy-in and all of that. You see it in the Premier League a lot. That's where we got, as players, instant buy-in because we had a trophy to show for it.
Yeah.
Nick Cushing, our manager, obviously the amount of work he put in, unbelievable. And that was where we started to kick on. So we started with success. We had a trophy under our belt, and that was like the minimum standard. Yeah. Now we set a precedent of what this football club wanted to be, which was winners. So yeah, that was a crazy good time.
I suppose it's a mix of looking forward, like you say, you've set the standard now and it attracts better players. The CFA was obviously coming through, but also looking back, you say it was all worth it in the end. And I think Steph said something similar where it was like it just felt like okay, I have actually made the right call here. So
yeah, that was how it was, and we all made different calls. Like they were already in the senior international set with England. I wasn't, so Man City got me there. There's no denying that. Man City got me there. I wanted to be in that bracket, and I did. I got there. But yeah, it was a risk. Steph, she was successful at Arsenal. Big move to come up here, but it was all, you hear like in football, like got sold a dream and all that. Like we didn't get sold a dream, we got sold the reality. And we made the right decision, and we've created a legacy which, hopefully it can go on and get beaten one day, because that would mean this club is successful.
Absolutely. And over the next couple of years, do you feel like that's one of the best teams you've played with at any point in your career, winning the league, going unbeaten, a League Cup as well, an FA Cup?
Yeah.
Where does that rank?
Yeah, it ranks up like at the very top. Like I think there's two things. Like the thing that gets my stomach going about winning is like winning is one thing, but winning it with the right people in a good culture together is even better, because trust me, the parties are there. The parties after you win, when you're doing it with people that you'd literally go to battle with, that is why you do it, in my opinion. Like people are motivated by different things. I'm motivated by winning, but winning with your mates. And we did that, and we created a legacy which, set a precedent. It was amazing.
Phenomenal. And you won PFA Player of the Year as well, didn't you, for start of 2016, so for the 2015 season.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel as well, it was one of the best teams, do you feel like you were playing some of the best football of your career as well at the time?
Yeah, without doubt. I think I was in a state of flow. Everything I was playing as a number 10 in the City system. Number 10 arrives on the penalty spot. Every time the ball goes wide, the ball gets cut back, you score. And every time the ball got cut back, I scored. And I can't remember my goal tally that season, but I was flying. And it's funny because when I won the PFA Player of the Year, I didn't at the time realise how big it was. It was the year that Leicester City won the Premier League. Yeah. So I was getting my picture with Riyad Mahrez, who obviously then came here. Kasper Schmeichel. Remember, this was, it was mental. But then at the time, I had no idea how big it was. And I think the clubs and the way that I was, going back to what Nedum said around the players who doubt themselves are almost better to work with because they don't believe how good they are. That was me. And as soon as I won the PFA Player of the Year, I remember thinking to myself, oh, well, it means nothing unless I go and do it again next year. Right. And I was thinking, oh my God, now if I could tell myself back then, hold up, give yourself a bloody rest. That is not okay. That's not sustainable. But that was the mentality I was in. I just wanted to win and be better. And maybe at times I wish somebody had just grabbed me and said, Izzy, chill out. It's not always normal to win back-to-back Player of the Years. And it wasn't my prerogative anyway. My prerogative was to win. Yeah. If I got a personal award as a side product, cool, great. But at the end of the day, I just wanted to win more. So maybe I was a little bit overly ambitious or competitive at times, which is, something I can reflect on now. But it was a good year.
As you look back, do you think that was your best season?
I had a really good season when I came back at Everton, but obviously that was in a different realm, a different project to then break into the top, the top elite of the WSL. But yeah, I think you're right. I think it was my best season. And also the season around that, the season before it and the season after it, we were an established Champions League club. Yeah. And I loved the way that Nick, he adapted our tactics in Europe. That is something why now I am so inspired and interested in football tactics, because it works, and what he did worked with us. And I think that's probably sparked a fire in me that is where I'm at now, which is why I want to be a coach. But I think that he definitely brought that out of me, and that was definitely my best year. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. So Nick's had a lot to say almost, and also in your punditry as well, because you are quite tactical as well when you sort of do your analysis and so on.
Yeah, punditry is a funny thing because genuinely all I care about is football. The football. I don't care about the drama or things outside of the pitch, things that people say. I don't read into it because I know that every manager speaks about, what they say in an interview isn't necessarily what's said in the dressing room, because you have to sustain that sort of relationship with the public. Sure. But the football and the way that teams adapt to play against each other or don't adapt, it's very common in the Premier League now that teams don't adapt and they're struggling. And it's fascinating. Obviously, at the moment, City are in a bad moment. We all know that. And how is Guardiola going to change? How's he going to adapt? What's he going to do? And I'm sure there's many City fans, wondering how and why as well. But these things are normal, and I think it's part of the journey. And how you get out of this situation, ultimately, it doesn't define you, but it ultimately says a lot about your character. The punditry is just wanting to bring to life the game. I work in men's and women's football. Women's football, I don't think enough gets said tactically about the game. I think we can gloss over a lot of stuff at times. It's a small league, but I genuinely think there's so much good stuff going on behind the scenes at every single club in the WSL that needs to be raised a little, and fans will start to get interested as the journey goes along. What's
your end goal then? Is it coaching a national team? Is it coaching WSL side, Premier League side? What are you thinking in an ideal world?
I would like to be coaching a Champions League football club.
Okay.
Yeah, and in whatever capacity that is, I'm not going to hang a hat on that right now, because I learn from everyone I work with, and I also, going back to what inspires me and gets my fire started, it's around who you do it with. And if that means I'm an assistant coach to a figurehead, happy days. If it means I'm the head coach and I've got other staff working with me, great. It's about what you call it, like pyramid leadership, like where you've got someone at the top and then you've got layers underneath of the different departments that require that the players need, you know, on a day-to-day, hour-by-hour basis. But I flatten that pyramid, and I'm like, as long as everyone's doing their job and you're all functioning in the right direction, like, it doesn't really matter who takes the plaudits. Obviously, someone's got to speak to the media after a game, and like, I get all that stuff, but like, to me, it's all about how you do it, the journey you go on, and what you do, and winning. Yeah. It's just winning. It's about winning.
Yeah. I suppose with the Champions League as well, it is a bit of a learning experience as well for any. It's probably not as much anymore, but I remember, especially when I was growing up, English teams in Europe going up against the best teams in Europe was a bit of an education at times, and they'd come out of those games, go into the next one, and you could see they picked something up or changed something for the next time. Do you think you'd get the same as a coach, or do you still feel that's the case as well generally in modern football? What
that you'd learn from European nations or other leagues around the world. Yeah, I think that in the women's game, it's funny because like in England, we've got teams that compete in our league in the WSL who should be in the Champions League based on their development as a football club. Like Manchester United, for example, in the WSL aren't in the Champions League this season, but the squad they've got, the players they've got, they should be. Now, obviously, there is a UEFA qualifying process, and obviously, if you finish top of your league, you get automatic qualification. If you finish second, you go through one round of preliminaries. If you finish third, you go through 2 rounds of preliminaries. And we've seen with City in recent years, they've actually lost because they've been drawn against Real Madrid. And it's been basically the games have come at too early of a time for them to be physically and tactically ready to compete in those games, because they've had like 10 days off after a major tournament. They come back and then you're playing Real Madrid. So the game almost is like a flip of a coin. And they've suffered. Man City have suffered as a result. And to me, that isn't right. But that's a whole separate podcast, Champions League qualification. But I'm just like saying that the quality of football around Europe is getting better and better and better. Scandinavian teams are normally really strong. We've seen with St. Polten against City, like they block and they almost condense their players into like a 50 by 50 metre grid inside their own 18-yard box almost. And it's like, if you ask any football team to break them down, they're going to struggle. Yeah. Because the players are condensed in front of the goal. Like, people think it's easy, but it isn't. So that's where women's football's at. I'd like to see it evolve so that we're not seeing deep blocks happen, because deep blocks is default for, okay, we're playing a top side, how do we stop them
get behind
scoring
the ball.
We get behind the ball, we get 11 behind the ball, we play on the counter-attack, we work for free kicks and throw-ins. Like, to me, that's not football, but I understand why people do it, because teams are a lot further ahead in their journeys of development and women's football is a new thing. It's not a new thing in terms of the history, but it's new in terms of the professionalisation of the game. So there's a lot to go into with that.
Do you think City are benefiting from the Champions League experience this season as well?
100%. I hang my hat right there with the City-Barca game here at the Joy Stadium earlier in the season. Was the best game of women's football I've ever seen. Wow. In terms of quality. Tactics, quality, players, performances. You know, someone from Barcelona wants to listen to this podcast and tell me, you know, Barcelona weren't at the races that day. Yeah, okay. They weren't at their very best, but I'm more like City was that good that it actually stopped Barca being good.
It felt like that. I mean, I'm obviously got nowhere near the knowledge that you two do about football tactically or anything like that, but it looked like City put Barcelona in a place that they've not been in a lot. And it's not a case of Barcelona weren't up to it. It's City were so good at stopping those threats that it meant that it was City's game to win rather than Barcelona's to lose, which I just thought was a really fascinating thing to watch. And I was watching from the stands and obviously doing my job, but also with my City hat on, kind of going like, this is ace, this.
Did you watch it, Nedum?
Yeah.
What were your thoughts on it?
No, I think it was the same. It wasn't the best version of Barca that we've seen. Yeah. But again, some of that was down to what City were doing. I think as the game progressed, Barca came into it a bit more. Yeah. You know, they'd feel a bit disappointed that they didn't get something from the game as such. But in terms of like going toe to toe with, you know, one of the greatest sides of this era, like City did that. And they didn't do it, as you said, by just parking the bus. You know, they were aggressive with when they were trying to win the ball, and then whenever they wanted, maybe at times, you know, the transition is quicker sometimes it's a bit slower, but the organisation was there. And I think that's what I like in some ways, that because I couldn't make the argument that it's not the best game I've ever seen in women's football either, because so many little things were going on the field which were of real high quality, which aren't necessarily obvious to the eye, but are significant for the outcome. You know, whether somebody positions himself in a certain place to limit somebody else going one way, or whether you're forcing somebody to one side. I think for the way that most of us watch football, we're probably guilty of just watching what the camera's showing us. The ball goes here, goes to the right back, goes to the right winger, comes into midfield.
Yeah.
But there's so much other stuff going on.
Yeah.
And if the like footballing IQ wasn't there on the field, I think it'd look very, very different. But instead it is, and as a consequence, it's like a chess match.
Yeah.
Which is what I love. Yeah.
And going back to your playing career, there's probably a similar time when you were playing for City, and we played Lyon twice. It's similar in terms of just a team dominating Europe constantly. How did you as players find playing in that game? Was it similar where you're almost learning a little bit as you're going, but also the tactics are, we're going to go toe-to-toe with them, but also be aware of, obviously, the threats that they're going to have going the other way?
Yeah, I mean, the acknowledgement of the fact that you're going to suffer within the game needs to be spoken about in the pre-match build-up, match day -1, match day -2 training, because when you're playing against a top team, because Lyon were European giants at that point, you know, you've got to know as a player, it's quite a daunting prospect, and it's like how you manage being daunted by their presence on the pitch, or whether you actually accept the challenge of actually we're going to be the ones to beat them. And it's twofold, and finding a balance in between. I think if you go too far with one way of being enthusiastic, thinking we're going to beat them, you then deviate from the process of trying to beat them. So it's a managing emotions piece to start with. And then I think what we did in that game was actually Nick Cushing used me as a false nine. So we speak, you know, City, Pep, you know, going back into the Barcelona days of coaching philosophy, you know, the false nine is used to dominate the midfield, to add a numerical overload in the centre of the pitch, a 4v3, a 2v1, you know, even a 5v4 at times if you took the wingers in. It's to dominate the central part of the pitch, which is the most vulnerable part of the pitch, because you can score quicker if you win the ball back centrally than if you win the ball back high and wide. There's still work to do to get in the box, and part of the pitch is cut off. So I was used as a false nine, and when Nick told me out here on the training pitch that he was going to use me in that way, I was so excited, because I'm someone who thrives off little, like, little stimulus of change. Like, I love the methodology at this football club. I love the philosophy. I love how we work. I love how consistent it is. But then if you can, like, tweak things, like, okay, I'm going to use this play off the left today. I'm going to use you as a false nine, which was me at the time. And the reason I was used was to dominate the midfield. Yeah. So I basically was given license to drop in and add a number into an area where we needed a number to get out of a situation. So it worked. So if I dropped in and I was marked, Kira Walsh was free, which, you know, anyone that knows Kira Walsh, if Kira Walsh is free on the ball, happy days. So, or if they didn't mark me, Kira Walsh is marked, I then get on the ball on the half turn and I play forward. Yeah. So it's, you know, it's that cat and mouse, you know, and that's why I think playing against Lyon was such a big part of the progression of this football club, is because we actually got a result away. Yeah. We drew at home, we got a result away. We did have Carly Lloyd, who came, you know, on a short loan period with us, which was massive, because she at the time was one of the world's best players. Her mentality was different. And I think, you know, if you learn from everyone you come across, what I learned from her is that probably a piece I needed was to be a little bit more bulletproof mentally and back yourself more, believe in yourself. That woman believed in herself until the cows come home. I swear, like, she had so much inner belief that she would get a chance, almost like a Cristiano Ronaldo mindset, you know, where, you know, not you know, superior in terms of as a footballer, link up play, you know, understanding the game, but his understanding inside the 18-yard box is different gravy. And the fact that she had his mindset, it was weird. It was the closest I've seen in the female game to what we see on the outside of Cristiano Ronaldo.
I think Steph said a really interesting story about Carly, where I think there was some kind of training drill, and it was about your jumping, your height, and Carly was kind of quite low ranked on it, and some of the players were kind of gently sort of giving her a bit of a ribbon for it, and she was like, it doesn't matter, I'll win the header in the game.
Yeah.
Facts.
Yeah, it's CMJs, it's counter movement jump.
That's right.
They test in the gym for power. And, you know, being over 40 centimetres, if you can jump over 40 centimetres on a standing jump, like, that's decent. I remember this. Carly was like maybe low 30s, high 20s, which is a bit of a shock, really. You're like, whoa, how can you be one of the best players in the world and jump that high? But yeah, you're right, and Steph's right. She yeah, she'd just back herself.
It's the same as like when you measure speed. Yeah, you can have speed, but can you get there first? If you realise as people get a bit older, they might lose some of their speed, but they still get there first because now they understand the situation differently. You know, they read things differently. Same with like Carly. And there are other players, like say from the men's game, looking at like Tim Cahill and so on. Tim Cahill's it's like 5'10".
The timing and the spring of his jump.
Yeah.
The timing of it is like remarkable. You know, to talk about like Real Madrid, Sergio Ramos, he's like 5'11". Obviously he scores pens, free kicks, but so many headers. Thiago Silva the same. He's like 5'10". But it's because of like their understanding of where the ball's going to be, knowing how to like high point it, put themselves in the right areas. Like those guys, they're an anomaly, honestly. Like especially with when I was younger, I'd have a quick winger who's on my team and they're playing against like an old fullback. I was like, oh, you're gonna get him 90 minutes. You're gonna have him on toast. You're gonna have him 90 minutes later. It's like, well, that didn't work out the way that you needed it to work out. It's because the older player had the experience to understand how to get somewhere first, how to take away somebody's strength, use their speed to their maximum, and just leave half a second earlier. Before you know it, they always get there first.
Yeah. Doing a bit of market research here because we've talked before, Nedum. Did you ever do in training like an old v young game?
Yeah.
Who won?
Loved it.
If
the young'uns got their mentality right, they'd normally give, a good game, but it was normally the old ones who win.
Dave, mate, listen, it's not just me. I state this as a fact.
Which completely, cuts through, in modern football recruitment now. The first thing that club hierarchies, they're going, right, okay, interested in this player. What's their age? They're 29. Ooh,
it's a bit
not
old.
interested.
Ooh.
How high can they jump? It's like, no. Experience is everything. It really is.
Absolutely. Like with those games, like the youngsters always look nice doing what they're doing, but how much of it is actually worthwhile to win this game of football? And then if they take the lead, do they know how to manage it? Probably not. Because we need another one.
Excited,
yeah, exactly. Whereas us, it's like, all right, cool. They've gone forward, right? Bang, bang. Now we're leading. Oh, the block gets so low on a Friday. It's like, wait, it's tight.
You know what's funny,
boys.
right? Last Friday night, I was coaching in the academy, and we wanted to stimulate. Our game had been cancelled on the Saturday, the day after. So we wanted to manipulate a bit of match minute environment with the numbers we had. We had 16 players in training, 2 goalkeepers, so 7v7, right? So we cut the pitch up. We brought the goals up to the edge of the box. We narrowed off the pitch a little bit, created a 7v7. And we did 4 10-minute blocks. And in each 10-minute block, gave a scenario to the players. So it was red team v blue team, right? Pick the teams. And so I presented in the meeting before what we're going to do, right? I then gave them a couple of minutes after each scenario to come up with a game plan. Because we really want to develop the football IQ around how are you going to manage the game. So game 1, Blues are 1-0 up. How are you going to protect your lead? Reds, you're 1-0 down. How are you going to get back in the game? Right. So that was scenario 1. And on the blue team, who were 1-0 up for that game 1, they decided that their best way to defend their 1-0 lead was to go and score again. And I like that. And I didn't expect them to come up with that. I expected them to drop off and sort of, force wide. And interestingly, the 3rd and 4th game, I presented a scenario of them. The Blues are 2-0 up. The Reds, if you score a header, you get 3 goals. So it was like, can they work it wide? Yeah. Or can they play for corners and get crosses into the box? Because I just wanted to get them thinking. Because this is where now I think, if our academy are going to get through to the first team, they're in the most brilliant environment right now, but also what's your football IQ like? Like, how do you manage the game? Yeah. Like, are you going to take it to the corner? And it doesn't matter that you do that because it's not in City's methodology. You're doing it because you're trying to protect a lead. And those little pieces, little sprinklings of football IQ or knowledge. And I don't know about you, Nedum, but did you learn them or did you just learn them from watching TV? Football on the TV? Not
necessarily from watching TV because it's like, how much you really like attach to the game when you're watching it. Say if you're younger, like you might be watching the Stars or whatever. But I think when it came down to training, those scenarios matter. And the fact that you've mentioned scenarios makes me realise that's at times what experience is: the ability to understand the scenario, know what's right in any particular moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And for some, they won't know until they're either told or they've lived it. But then there are others who still live it and don't understand the lesson that should come from the scenario. And when you start to sort of understand it better, like some of the best players I played with, and some of the ones that played with at City, is like a Gareth Barry, for example.
Yeah.
Whatever the situation needed, he happened to be there doing the right thing. Yeah. You know what I mean? Whether it's like, we're moving the ball at the back, and then all of a sudden, like, we're under a bit of pressure. Here's a diagonal ball to someone, or understanding when to come and receive the ball to take some of the heat out. Like, he was really, really very clever at understanding the wider context of what's happening in the game.
Yeah.
And those people, they're remarkable because I personally think, I think younger players technically are better than they were when I was younger. Yeah. But what I would say is that some of them are a bit too literal with the coaching that is being presented to them.
Yeah.
So if they get told that this is what we'd like to do in this game, some of them almost like hang their hat on that and will not budge from it. But the best players are the ones who are technically good, will listen to the instruction, but will also play the game that's in front of them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like, as a consequence, I think the average player in my mind is better, but there's still some players who are great as well. So we sort of see the gap tighten, but there are some people who manage scenarios like magnificently. Like, say, for example, there were times when I was in the academy, and this is something that I really appreciate, and appreciate this to this day. Like, if we play football on a Tuesday, you'll get this. Like, after my team scored, this was under 17s, we were really good on the 17 team. So we'd just score, and the ball's on the halfway line for the other team, and the coach is shouting on the sideline, win it back, win it back, win it back. And it's because this other team now is almost expecting us to take goal on the back foot.
Yeah.
But when you've punched them once, the next punch is to now get the ball and control the game again. And then you see their spirit like just drop off massively. But instead, most teams, and some people, well, not most teams, but some people you play with, it's like you score and say, well, the job's done now. And now you encourage the other team to come back into it.
Yeah.
Like, it's understanding in that moment what you need. You need more aggression. You don't need to be softer. You need to understand like when to go long, when to go short, when to, as I say, try and press on a certain thing, when to like take the heat out of the game. And the more people you have in your team like that, that's the young versus old, you know.
Yeah. It's managing the game.
Exactly, yeah. Like, we're winning, we've got 2 minutes left. It's fine. The youngsters are trying all sorts and they're not understanding none of it matters.
Flips,
Yeah.
tricks, the lot, yeah.
I suppose as well, the other way of looking at it really simply is the opposition aren't going to do the same thing the whole way through the game either, are they? So you've got to be able to adapt to what they want you to do as well.
Yeah, and like, to go to my side as well, this is as I'm watching games. Like, I don't watch as much football as Izzy, but I watch a lot of football. And like, Izzy's the person that I go to when I want to have a discussion about football properly, the only person. And like, there's some things that happen in games. Like, if a team's been really bad in the first half, in my mind, I remember being as a player thinking as I'm walking out in the second half, they will not be as bad in the second half. They cannot be.
Yeah.
So as a consequence, you need to be ready for what is going to come next. But then there are other people who I'd be on the pitch alongside. This wasn't necessarily at City, it's elsewhere, where they're like, we're doing a great job here. Just same again second half. I'm like, no. Before you know it, it's like, bang, it's 1-1. Oh my God, we're 2-1 down. It's like chaos, you know what I mean?
It's a little bit like driving, right? You got to always assume that the cars around you aren't driving correctly.
They're absolute morons.
Yeah, and they're going to cause an accident. Touch wood.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, so therefore you have to be alert. You've got to check all your mirrors at all times what's going on, as well as staying focused on what you're doing.
Yeah.
And it's the same, really, isn't
Absolutely. And do you know as well, so Izzy, from the X's and O's, the tactics and stuff's brilliant because she loves football. You know, she watches it and she looks for things that are going on. I wouldn't necessarily say that's the standard within punditry itself, because then as well, we have to sort of like, we're in this business of being like really reactionary. So I think a team that loses a game that plays well is in a better position than a team that doesn't play well but wins a game to go into the next game.
Yeah.
Because you can see that there's something there at some point, like the results might start to go their way. But in our industry now as pundits, it's like, oh, they've lost 2 games in a row.
Manager.
The manager's under pressure now, isn't it? Whereas the manager, like, it's the typical one where a manager after a game say, you know, I thought my team played really well today. And the journalist will be like, no, you didn't. Like, how could you be happy? That's 2 goals. You know, you've not conceded this, not scored that.
It's just not good enough.
Yeah, like.
So when you say that, when you win a game but you don't play well,
Go on.
Is there a difference? Because there's some times where it might be a bit of a cliche, but it's always the thing where you're a good team if you don't play well but you still grind out the result.
Yeah, the different ways.
Different ways of.
It depends what the version of not playing well is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think some of the teams at the top of the league, when we say they don't play well and they lose to a team that's outside of the top 5 or 6, in reality, they probably still deserve to win, but they weren't as good as, say, they could be historically. And in terms of, well, that not playing well, winning and so on, I revert back to being a defender, and there've been clean sheets which I've had where my team's been horrendous. Yeah. And afterwards, everyone says, oh, clean sheet, great today. We gave up like 30 shots. Yeah. You know what I mean? But they didn't score. Oh, we were so good today, defensively so solid. But then there are other games where, like, you know, we did really well and it's like a scruffy goal or something.
Yeah. And
so it's like, oh, you guys conceded again. I'm like, oh, wow. You know, so for me personally, I want clean sheets, but I prefer wins. I think wins are the thing that matter most to me. Like, for example, now, I don't know if you'd agree with this, if I would talk about City men or City women, City Academy, any City team, you could be like a local team that wears a City shirt. If I offered you the chance to not have a clean sheet again for the rest of the season but win every game, would you take it, yes or no?
Of course you would.
Absolutely.
Exactly. So how important is a clean sheet, really?
It's something, again, like you say, it's reactionary.
Exactly.
If you do happen to win and you do happen to keep a clean sheet,
yeah,
managers will refer, or players in their post-match interviews will refer to the clean sheet.
Yeah.
Because everything's roses and butterflies and sun shining and everything's great. Everyone gets an acknowledgement, and it's also good management as well. You know, that normally, you know, it might have been a forward or an attacker who's created those moments to win the game, but it's, you know, that acknowledgement across the board to the team to go, you know, publicly acknowledging the fact that they kept a clean sheet. But to answer your question, come on.
Yeah.
Win all day.
Exactly.
Win 4-3.
Win 4-3 every game.
But score 4, you win the game.
The dream.
You take 3 points, you move on.
I would rather be standing on the pitch knowing my team can score than be standing on the pitch thinking, oh, we could keep a clean sheet here. Yeah. Because that scoring thing's actually quite exciting, because as long as there's time on the clock, it's like something's going to happen here, something's going to happen here. I prefer that, yeah.
You know, if you two start working together in management, I'm watching your team, it's going to be class.
No, there are two different ways to perceive this. Like, Izzy's got the desire and drive to work hard and work long hours. I don't, so unfortunately I'd be a consultant at best. At best.
I would definitely be calling on you as a consultant.
Yeah.
Nedum has lost me on the bounce. What are you saying?
What do you want me to say?
Phone's on do not disturb.
Yeah. But then as soon as you're winning, I'll be available.
Yeah. Start crawling out the woodwork.
Yeah, so I was back to Izzy. She was great, yeah.
Brilliant. I know we've fast forwarded through a lot of your career, but I wanted to talk about your last game, because it was obviously just over there.
Yeah.
What a lovely... I know obviously your last game could be quite emotional, but what a lovely day. You got an ovation from every single corner of the stadium as well. It was amazing.
I love the City fans, and obviously this club means so much to me because I had my best days here. And yeah, when I saw the fixture calendar, when I started to come towards this decision, I just saw that and I was like, oh wow, I'm going to get all emotional. And what the club did, I literally can't thank them enough. Like, it was incredible. It couldn't have been a better end, really, apart from the result. But I guess I wanted City to win the league. So there we go. But no, I think, it was such a perfect end. The fans are amazing. Every time I come back and watch the girls play, normally it's a bit of a hood up moment walking to my seat because the fans start singing again and I don't want it to be about me. It's about the players on the pitch, guys. But then I know that they have so much respect and acknowledgement for the players that have come before and, you know, been part of the club's history, so I get it. And obviously, like, at football clubs now, like, fans do sing old songs, don't they? Let's be really honest. So, no, keep it going, guys. No, it's great. It's so welcome when I come back here, and obviously to be involved with the club again is, it's such a privilege. I love it. Yeah.
I mean, you'd obviously done a bit of work anyway, sort of media-wise, before retiring, hadn't you? But still, I remember watching that game and was covering it, and I'm not just saying this because you're here. I thought you were the Everton's best player by some distance. So, like, I was almost thinking...
How much did you pay?
I remember taking a touchdown.
How much did you pay?
I remember plucking a ball out of the air on the right-hand side in front of the City fans. And
and in front of the press box.
I was watching it. Here we go. You guys,
thinking, what have I done? Like, take the flowers back. I'm going to stay, guys. I loved it. I mean, I was gutted to come off at 60 minutes, actually. I was like, I can keep going. But it had been an emotional week. It had been a really emotional week. I hadn't slept. I remember being really unwell. And it was a lot on my plate. And I think I remember going out with Jess Park after. We went and met the team in Bongo's Bingo, Liverpool. After, obviously, Jess, you know, a bit of a almost like I was a bit of a mother figure to her when she had her loan spell at Everton. Everton. Just was so I kind of saw it as like, I didn't really like speak to her too much, but when I spoke to her, I really tried to help her with her journey, because I know that how talented she is, and almost like saw that as a sort of an entrance into what it's like to be a coach, but more on a one-to-one basis, obviously. But Jess was brilliant, and then obviously last season, she's been brilliant for City. So I'm super proud of her, and we had a few drinks in the car on the way. We weren't driving, by the way. We had a few drinks in the car on the way to Liverpool together. I think my mum had dropped us in Liverpool, which was hilarious.
Nice.
It's like we needed a lift over there. It was like I literally had the craziest week planning, and everything was going on. My mind was all over. I think I'd just moved out with my other half into an apartment, and at the time, and like it was just like crazy. And I was like, "What is life?" And then I got to Bongo's Bingo, and I was, I was pretty smashed after a few drinks. Just put it that way. It's all part of the journey.
Yeah, that's Bongo's Bingo.
Bongo's Bingo, great night.
Yeah,
great
night.
It's
class.
Yeah.
But when I was talking about that move and so on in your performance, I remember almost thinking, why now? At 31. But
I know. I felt like I've had to do a lot of explaining around this, which
it's your call.
That's what I mean.
Anything,
and like, of course I miss playing. Of course I do. But I felt like I was at a T-junction.
Right.
And I think the burning desire of me to win things versus the environments that I was in were two different things. And I felt like I wanted to go and embark on what was next. And that was stronger than my desire to stay in the game, playing. Because I was like, a sideways move to continue just to keep playing, but not to challenge for anything, didn't inspire me as much as what I wanted to go and be inquisitive about. And I think I roll back to like when I was at university and I did a degree in sport physical education coaching science. I wanted to become a PE teacher and I was like this close. I was applying for PGCEs and I applied for an internship down at Millfield School because I wanted to teach. And that was my like gut. I wanted to go and help develop children in sport and inspire children in sport because I know how important being physically active is to physical and mental health. So that was where my heart was at. That was where my head was at. And then I got this pro contract at City and then like the tables turned. And then through my professional playing career, I felt like I achieved a lot in a short space of time.
Yeah.
And then I felt like I was like, I actually want to revisit where I was at. And like the opportunity to then transfer teaching and coaching skills into punditry to start with, because like I said, I care about the football and bringing that to life and explaining. And I think teaching and coaching is all about explaining your ideas to people to make them A, understand them, and B, in the simplest form possible so that you're not overcomplicating them. Yeah. I've been in team meetings with managers, coaches, and the meetings go on for 45 minutes and you come out with maybe one word that you remember that's going to help. So, but I've also been under exceptional managers who've given me that inspiration as well. So I felt like I wanted to sort of revisit it. Punditry was sort of where I was at because I think the best I'd learned was on radio. And they speak a lot about broadcast miles, and I'd done a lot on radio, in unfortunate circumstances in terms of broke my leg before the 2019 World Cup, didn't make the team, got asked to do radio, said no, came back and okay, I'll do it, like whatever, I'll give it a go, and then ended up being quite good at it, and then carried on, and now I commentate on men's Premier League matches, which is crazy. I went out to the Euros, and did like it was just mad, but. That's where I think like you're on the radio. Like Nedum knows he's bloody fantastic on the radio, as you well know. It's like how can you describe something which people can't see, but so they understand it, and they sit in their cars or they're sitting in their kitchen, wherever they are listening, and they're like, oh, I get what they mean. It clicks. So I think that's a skill in itself, and I think that is so transferable to coaching.
100%, yeah.
So transferable because it's short, concise communication to get people educated, to understand. And with coaching is like you almost get the end product as well. Because like I said, it comes back to winning. For me, it's about winning. If you can coach a team or be part of a coaching staff to get a team to titles, for me, that's like I'll quit football at the age of 40 if I need to, if I've done that, because I'm like, that's what I want to do. It's like a drug, isn't it? Football it's like, it's addictive. And no matter how much you cover, how many games you do, it's like if you didn't do it for 2 weeks, you'd be like, something's missing in my life. But yeah, that was why, I guess, in a long-winded way.
No, it makes complete sense to me.
I'm glad.
Yeah. Who were the sort of key people for you, whether it be coaches, whether it be people in media or players or anything that have kind of helped? I suppose it's to both of you as well. When you've made that transition from a player to working in the media, becoming a coach, doing all these kind of different other roles, who were the key people that sort of helped and trained you to, or gave you tips that maybe you hadn't thought about before?
I'll start from this point and I'll work backwards. So one of the last times I saw Izzy, we were talking about broadcasting. So you could make an argument, there's the two of us. Because I watch her on TV and I'm listening to what she's saying. I'm seeing how she's doing it. And then if I'm on TV, like, I'll be thinking about the same sort of thing, because the points she makes about, like, educating, I think that's something that gets forgotten about when we generally think about punditry, because some of the stuff that goes the furthest isn't educating anybody. It's just shouting at things.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Singling people out.
Yeah.
But that's the world we live in now. Like, it is clicks.
Yeah.
Like, and I get it, and it's fine. Like, we roll with it. But the depth and content and knowledge is the most important thing, and that's going to get you results at the end of the day.
100%.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, it's a valid point, and I think we enjoy the football side of things to the point where, well, if we're not going to be talking about that, then why are we here? If you want to be just shouting at someone to be shouting, you could get anyone on to shout as such. But as I look back at, say, the media that I do, which is very different to Izzy currently, because Izzy's like very good at like co-coms, Izzy's very good at doing the in-studio analysis. I tend to still do more radio now, whereas you don't do any radio at all as such, do you?
I do, but not necessarily as many chats. I've done some 5 Live co-coms.
Yeah,
but yeah, anyway.
That's what I mean. So it's different, but I think from when you realise that, you know, I could get called a pundit, but I'd rather be called a broadcaster, because I think a broadcaster is something which encompasses a lot of different roles within that industry itself. And to do it properly, you need to know what you're supposed to be doing. So some people who are in that field who are more experienced, a lot of people who are like behind the camera, you know, who are behind the glass when you're in a radio studio, and going into every sort of bit of work that you do, asking like, I think the saying is like, what is different today about what I'm supposed to be doing? Like, am I talking on radio to an audience who are getting ready to listen to a game? Am I on, say, BBC TV, and people have just turned on TV and now we're talking about sport? Because all of a sudden you can't just talk about inverted fullbacks and false nines.
Yeah.
You know, you've got to like address it differently.
Bring it up. Yeah, you got to build it up. Yeah.
But you only get that from the feedback from the people who you work with. So in terms of inspiration and stuff, I can't say I was ever really like inspired like that from when I started. But from when I started, I did a lot of stuff, and I've started to sort of fine tune it to do the stuff which I enjoy. Yeah. And the stuff which I enjoy is the stuff where I do it with people who also enjoy football, not people who are there for the status of it. People who really enjoy getting a chance to watch it and to talk about it properly. Because then when you can do that, like when people listen, like when we start talking, if I'm on a show and we start talking about something and it's like going to so many different layers, it's only when we stop talking and we look around and I see that people are actually really interested in it that I think, well, that was a valid conversation to have. And we never planned for it, but it became it because we talked about it properly. We're not talking about, yeah, but he's no good. He's no good. He's not this. He's not that. Like, we're talking about football properly. And as a consequence, I enjoy it. And we might disagree on things, but it's different perspectives, but trying to be fair to the game itself. Yeah. So that's Izzy's, I think Izzy's the best. And that's why I refer to Izzy whenever I talk about anything football related on TV.
Well, the one of my favourite bits, you actually said it on Match Day Live, was last season you described Kovacic as a microwave midfielder.
Yeah.
I was just like, and then when you explained, it's like, oh yes, because you just put him on minute, warm him up, and he's ready to go.
Heat him up for 2 minutes and he's ready.
It's just class. Like,
well,
I just really like
that's
that.
the way that my brain thinks. It's not great but at times, but that's the way I kind of, like I thought the other day when I was speaking about, I can't remember which game I was doing. I was doing a game for 5 Live, and I was talking about last line 9, as in a number 9, like the complete polar opposite to a false 9 is a player that drops in. A last line 9 is someone that just hugs the shoulders of the centre backs and just plays on the last line. It just rhymes, so I was like, oh, that sounds nice. I'll say that.
It's good, that.
But what's it called? Is it a simile? No, not a simile. When you describe something with the same letter.
The same letter.
So microwave midfielder, that is called...
It's alliteration, isn't it?
It's an alliteration, that's exactly it. Yeah, it just sounded good. But Kovacic, I was just like, he's coming to this club and he's in his late 20s. God forbid, wow.
I know, yeah.
Gosh,
I know,
how's
crazy,
he coping out there?
Don't get started.
But yeah, he's ready to go. So it's like a microwave meal.
Yeah, it was brilliant.
Not that I endorse those in any way, but...
They are good,
so far, I'm sure you'll say. I'm sure you'll find one in time. Someone will want to sponsor you. That's as it stands, everybody.
You know what? Never give up on your dreams.
Valid, yeah, valid.
Winning microwave sponsorship.
Yes. There we go. There we
Brilliant.
go.
Well, I mean, I could talk for all day, but I've got a message on the right hand side that said we need to wrap. So unfortunately, a real shame. But thank you so much for your time today, Izzy.
Thank you.
Just before we finish, we always leave a question. It's one of those answer a question, leave a question situations.
Yeah.
So It was Nico O'Reilly, wasn't it, who's left this question.
Okay.
It's actually quite a tough one, but interpret it how you want. It was.
Where's this going?
Yeah. Who's the most annoying teammate you've ever played with?
Oh gosh. Are we right? So are we talking off pitch or on pitch?
So it's up to you.
Yeah, wherever you want.
It's up to you.
So you're thinking you've got a few, or you're struggling to find one?
I'm just trying to think of. Okay, she's not gonna like this.
Go on.
Nikita Paris.
Ooh.
I actually like. Let me just place here now on record. I actually love Keats, but she will scream for the ball when you've got your back to goal. You can't see her. You may be protecting the ball in the corner flag, and she's out on the right wing, 8 yards away from you. She'll ask for the ball.
Okay.
And it's like, Keats, it's not humanly possible to get you the ball there right now.
Yeah.
Maybe if we build up a little bit, we might find you, but for now it's not on. And because she's got a very distinctive ask for the ball on the pitch, which is a good thing, by the way. When I'm
absolutely,
coaching,
desire,
I'm like to do in the 16s, I'm like, girls, you need to communicate. You know, you need to tell each other you want the ball. Yeah, left, right, play me in, whatever, point where you want the ball. Keats does all of that in abundance to a high level. But sometimes it was just hilarious when I was playing with her because, like, sometimes it just wasn't humanly possible to get her the ball. Even if you're Kevin De Bruyne, I don't know if he could have done it. And I wouldn't necessarily class it as annoying. I would just say that was her trademark because she just wanted the ball so much, which is something, like I said, you're trying to coach into players at the moment. So that's probably the one I can think of off the top of my head. Probably many others along the way, but there we go.
Brilliant
Keats.
forward as well.
Yeah,
Nikita
top
Paris.
forward, top player.
Proper. I always felt she was almost like a wasp or something that's constantly moving around. And
Yeah,
just
she's
sort of jumping
aggressive.
about.
Yeah, she's good. She's a winner as well.
Yeah. And then finally, just a question for you to leave the next guest. So we don't actually know who it is at this stage, but it could be a football question or a non-football question. It's up to you.
Okay. Seeing as I'm really not obsessed with football one little bit, I want to know the next guest's favourite roast dinner. So build your own. So start with the meat, move on to the veg, the sauces. I want to know what they want. So there we go.
a good one.
Build your perfect.
Could get
roast.
someone in trouble that.
Yeah.
Someone could get in big trouble for that.
Why is
but
that?
Just because they'll say something and everyone, could you do that? How could you say that?
I know.
But, you know, it's
Gotta be turkey.
It has to be.
yeah, dry turkey, no gravy.
Roasties have to be crispy.
They do.
Well, I need to know it all from the
Yeah.
next guest. I want to know, the detail around every item on their roast dinner plate.
That's a really good shout.
Yeah, she's done well there.
Unfortunately, I'm now a vegetarian, but before it would have been, I don't know, it's quite controversial, lamb.
Is that controversial?
I love.
Is that
people
controversial?
always say, for a roast, they're like, surely it's you think of the Holy Trinity, don't you? Think of beef or chicken or turkey and I've picked a fourth one here, but
Holy Trinity? I don't know if that's Holy Trinity.
You think of them as like the staples, but lamb's top for me.
Wow. You are in a minority though, I think.
That's
Well,
what
you're not alone. Remember, you're not alone, though.
In a UK survey, I reckon you'd be in like a small minority of people who'd say lamb.
Interesting.
Is that a pointless answer?
Yeah.
Congrats.
Excellent. Amazing. Well, I'm very hungry. I'm going to go and make myself a roast dinner.
Fantastic.
Izzy, thanks so much for your time again.
Thank you.
Really enjoyed it.
Thanks very much. It's been great.
The unbeatable official Manchester City podcast. Watch the full video version of this show via City Plus now.